In the last video, we discussed the first half of the most recent Inside Infinite post. There was a lot there. We went over the art team's philosophy of legacy and simplicity, some of the art and screenshots shown off, and discussed the audio that was dropped in the post. Today, I intend to finish the latter half of the post, so let's just get right into it. Our first topic of today goes as follows. Can you talk about the processes and collaboration that goes into creating Zeta Halo and its experiences? Does the world team create a cool space and then the gameplay designers jump in to layer on the fun? Or do the designers spec out the experiences as a blueprint for the world team to go off and build? Justin, the art lead, goes first. He talks about the fact that Halo Infinite, and the world they have created, is a large one, and as such there isn't a standard process to the areas created. In some spots, there will be an artist who makes a scenic and gorgeous area, and a gameplay designer will add the gameplay elements on top. In other cases, the design team will be the first in, designing a space to fit all of the gameplay needs, and an artist will follow to pretty it up, make it fit the environment. In other cases, the two work together. This is a good sign because it means that there are a variety of spaces being built. Some for the gameplay aspects where everything has been designed specifically for the perfect firefight or an excellent spot for vehicle combat. Others might be a nice pretty piece of land to explore. Maybe a mountain you can climb using your grapple or something else. What is particularly interesting are the areas where artists and designers are cooperating closely, the two working off one another. These areas are likely going to be the ones where the most effort is put into, and I'm very curious to see how they turn out. Troy, the gameplay director, builds off of Justin's statement. He discusses the fact that the design and art teams have to often build off one another, and the two will bounce concepts, designs, and iterations off of one another until they get an idea of what they want down. He also talks about how sometimes they have to reduce and scale, redesign certain things, or cut out certain features as things rarely go perfectly. Now, to be very clear, this is not a cause for concern. This is actually very reassuring, and it is perfectly normal for these things to happen in any form of artwork. Just like music, painting, cinema, and theater, video games are a form of art, involving a mix of all of the aforementioned forms of art to create an environment and product the player can interact with. When making a piece of artwork, I find that I go through many phases. I'll play around with the shapes and mess with things. Sometimes I haven't settled on what I want to do, so I'll just sketch and doodle until I settle on something. In many cases, what I want to make initially is nothing like the end product. I might cut out certain things, redraw others, or double down and add on to what I've made. A video game in this sense is not necessarily different. As a piece of art, the game will go through many phases before being settled on, so what Troy described is fairly normal and shouldn't be mistaken as anything else. John, the world design lead, has nothing much to add, simply stating, I think Troy and Justin have described our experience of creating the game very well. The best results always come from collaboration, and as we move forward, collaboration will be a core aspect of processes we continue to iterate and hone. Moving forward, we come to this concept art right here. A Banished Stronghold. Looking at it, this is a very unique structure. The design is something that, to my knowledge at least, we have not actually seen in Halo lore before. It is almost certainly a far cry to the Covenant bases, and this is pretty cool. We know that brutes who run the Banished have a knack for making their own designs and iterations to match their nature and tastes. What I find interesting about this base is that it almost looks like a sizable chunk of it was deployed from a larger vessel. We can quite clearly see the foundation of the structure, which has likely been constructed directly on the ring, and there appear to be a massive set of support beams, or of sorts, built into the main structure, which is being lifted off the ground by aforementioned support beams. A theory of mine, and again this is a theory, is that a larger Banished vessel, such as a CAS, or a supercarrier that we know the Banished are in possession thanks to Shadows of Reach, deployed the structure and it linked up with the foundation below. It would make sense for the main structure to be elevated off the ground. Any UNSC forces trapped on the ring would likely be stuck on the ground. A group of Marines would have an incredibly difficult time assaulting the fortress because, well, it's already elevated above the ground. They'd have a difficult time getting in, and any gun emplacements on top would have a clear view of them. In terms of the architecture, some parts of it remind me of some 40k artwork I've seen. For the record, I'm not well versed in 40k, but some of the art I have seen for it reminds me of this. Below it there's a description. Banished Strongholds, as shown in this concept painting, can be approached from nearly any direction with more tactical options than prior Halo games. This is rather exciting. I wonder if I could almost relive a moment from the novel The Flood, where Silva and McKay led ODSTs and Marines to take a Covenant base and use it as their own. It would be cool to assault it head-on with a group of Marines, or fly a Banshee, taking out any shade turrets the Banished set up before dropping onto the roof. Perhaps you could take the stealthy approach. A particular scene that comes to mind is from Halo Reach, where the Master Chief and Blue Team sneak their way into a Banished occupied base, taking out guards as they go. I wonder, what do they mean by tactical options? And I also wonder if there is going to be one single design for Banished Strongholds, or if you can come across a variety of Banished Strongholds with different layouts and designs. The next question is rather short and simple. What's your personal favorite aspect of this world and/or the experiences therein? Given that this is a matter of personal preference, I'll just read their responses directly. As usual, Justin answers first. One of my favorite features in the game is our time of day lighting system that is active while you are playing the game. This has been one of, if not the largest graphical feature implemented into our engine over the last few years. It allows us to create artistic scenes and settings that have vastly different visual tones and moods depending on which time during the cycle you encounter something. So, coming across a mysterious forerunner obelisk during the day might feel peaceful and serene, where at night it might feel much more ominous and threatening. It really adds to some incredibly dynamically driven visual variety throughout the experience where we were not able to have it before. Troy stated, "For me, the games are all about experiences they create. I want to be challenged, engaged, and surprised. Every time I talk about the gameplay, you will hear me talk about player opportunity, because I feel it is key to creating an immersive experience. It's difficult to pin down one favorite aspect of the world because it is really the sum of its parts. The world of Infinite presents you with challenges in a box full of toys. How you overcome those challenges is up to you." John concludes this segment with his own answer. "I love the agency we are creating that really doubles down on that premise of delivering on the promise of Halo CE. Enemy strongholds can be approached from any direction, and there are so many options available for how you take on the challenges at hand. Do I blaze through the front gate in a Warthog full of Marines and just light the place up with zero subtlety? Do I scout the perimeter and discover a subterranean entrance that allows me to enter through one of the interior structures? Do I grapple shot to be a sniper tower, take out the inhabitant, and begin picking off enemies from my raised vantage point? There are so many options available that allows players and everyone to approach the game the way they want and to have their own unique experiences. I'm excited to hear stories of all the different ways players have taken on missions in the game once we are released." So what can we gain from these? Firstly, the time of day lighting system is a key focus in the game, changing the feel and tone as the day goes on. Another focus is player choice. Based on these answers, it is very, very clear that one of the biggest aspects of Halo Infinite is player choice. Throughout this, there has been a heavy emphasis on playstyle, exploration, and preference. The goal here is to craft an experience for everyone, which fits the theme of Halo Infinite. It is a Halo game for everyone. If you just want that classic Halo story, go have at it. If you want to explore, explore. If you want to complete everything, well, there is plenty to do. If you want to go in guns a-blazing, do it! If you want to sneak in your way like an assassin, you got it! We have another set of in-game imagery, and wow, is this gorgeous. We get a contrast of what a Forerunner structure looks like in the day compared to how it's looking as the sun is setting. Wonder if the time of day will reflect more than just mood. Perhaps it grows more dangerous at night, or perhaps it's less dangerous at night and it is more preferable to move during the night because the enemy is less active. Or what if, let's just say that 343 decides to pull a plot twist like in Halo CE and bring the Flood back, which personally I think they will. The night suddenly becomes exceedingly dangerous as the Flood prowls about, searching for victims who are foolish enough to stop and rest. I also wonder if there will be a weather system. We know that the Halo rings do have artificial weather patterns, though given the fact that a lot was already put into the time of day systems, I'm not sure if they'd add in weather outside of scripted moments, but who knows, maybe they'll surprise us. The next question involves the narrative. Story is going to be coming at the player from every angle, and it's safe to say Zeta Halo is as much a character in Halo Infinite as Chief, the pilot, or Esherim. How does the world and the world team's work support the narrative experience? Justin reiterates that Zeta Halo is indeed almost like a character, talking about how they want Zeta to feel almost like it is alive, regardless of whether or not the player is present at that location. So perhaps if you're on a hill and you look at a structure below with a sniper, you might see some animals around it. He also makes note of visual storytelling, how the history of the ring is implied, and how those implications can affect the future. Firstly, this is excellent. Visual storytelling is an amazing thing, and it leaves a lot to the imagination. This also addresses an issue with 343 storytelling in the past. In a discussion video I had with Installation 00, 00 stated that one issue with 343's previous method of storytelling was that they enforced the narrative, whereas Bungie implied by answering a question but leaving things unfilled for the player to discover. This method of implying the narrative by half answering the question in a way that satisfies the player all while leaving more to be uncovered is part of what made the original Halo games so well done. Justin went on to say, "We have had two main goals bringing Zeta to life. First, to visually show what is happening in the current times with the violent occupation of the Banished forces and how it has shaped to the landscape of the ring. And second, to create a mystery and intrigue around Zeta's past and ultimate purpose. Intertwining these two major story characteristics of Zeta has been an awesome and rewarding challenge. Players will not only experience the immediate story of Chief's reawakening to confront the Banished and Cortana, which, as a note, hooray, the created are confirmed, but if they look around, they may find glimpses of the future as well. You know, I actually wonder how the banished occupation of Zeta Halo will affect the wildlife on the ring. It would be so cool to see groups of brutes hunting big game on the ring for sport. Troy's answer speaks for itself. The ring definitely has its own story to tell, and the environment artists have done an amazing job bringing this to life. Memories of past battles scar the surface, and evidence of bigger events can be seen in the fractured chunks of the ring floating in the sky. This is something that I really care about because I'm more of a show me, don't tell me kind of player. I find that discovering things and figuring things out for myself go much further to immerse me in the world. Once again, this is phenomenal. 343 have clearly learned from the past. One thing Halo 5 did was it made itself an exceedingly dialogue-heavy game. It would pose a question and then immediately answer it not long after in heavy bits of chatter. A show me, don't tell me approach works because it leaves things to the player's imagination. Once again, imply, don't enforce. John concludes this segment by discussing the structure of the campaign, but doesn't go into too much detail. He mentioned that there are going to be main story missions to which he referred to as the Golden Path, but he also mentions that things are a bit more open-ended. In his words, we are breaking down the walls to create a more open play space, offering exploration discovery. What is that odd tower in the distance? I see a smoke signal over that ridge. What is the source of that odd hum? Go find out. In other words, that smoke signal in E3 2018 where Chief rides in a warthog to go rescue Marines? It's part of the game. There are Marines across the ring that need to be rescued. The odd tower John mentions, it could be a tower that we saw in the July 2020 demo that was off in the distance, and we've also seen in some box art. My current hope is that that tower is actually part of a series of flood facilities located across Zeta Halo as part of the Palace of Pain, as ancient humans who were kept on the ring called the said facilities. I wonder how all of this will affect replayability. One thing I love about Halo and Destiny 1 is that I can hop into a mission to relive epic moments. It's always fun to fight my way across Void in the Storm, or relive the opening moments of the Taken War by fighting my way across a Cabal base on Phobos in the coming war. A trend I've noticed in many open world and semi-open world games is that you can't go back to relive those fun moments. One thing I don't like about Destiny 2 is the fact that I can't relive the epic moments and missions across the campaigns. If I want to replay them, I have to make a new character and start from scratch. If every aspect of Halo Infinite is open, will that mean I cannot replay my favorite mission? If so, that might actually hurt the game in the long run. A common struggle with open world games is the post-campaign content and the side content. How can they retain their audience even after completing the main story of the game? A good example was Destiny 1, which had huge content droughts where the player base had nothing of note to do after the campaign, and what they did have wasn't enough to keep people around. If you can't replay missions in Halo Infinite, then Halo Infinite is going to have to be completely reliant on its multiplayer and open world to keep its audience, and that worries me. Just think about it. We are still, to this day, replaying the stories of Reach, ODST, 2, 3, CE, 4, and even 5. Halo is just naturally good at bringing us back to the campaign to explore our favorite levels. Taking away that element can drastically harm the game's longevity. Next question. How does the introduction of new equipment and traversal mechanics like the grapple shot factor into the creation of this environment? And how does it inform the foundation for encounters within the world? Justin begins this segment talking about the challenges of crafting the environment when tools such as grapple shot were involved. He talked about how the grapple shot can allow players to get to anywhere they can reach, and as such, the environment had to be designed around that. One thing he mentioned was that the art team made sure there were areas that the players can reach using the grapple shot to get excellent views of the ring. Almost akin to the, see that? You can go there philosophy that some games have. Troy builds on what Justin stated, mentioning that before, a large wall or cliffside would stop the Chief from getting to some points, but now that is no longer the case. The Chief can get to virtually anywhere that he needs to get to, and as such, encounters need to be built with that in mind. They couldn't just put a single path into the base, and the objective be at the far end of said base. The player using the grapple can get to the far end of the base, so that can't work. In Troy's words, as a player, I like to figure out the best way to approach a situation, and my best way might be different from yours. The grapple shot helped the team break out of the single path design mindset and evolved into something much more exciting. It's become so second nature that when I play other games, I find that I miss the grapple. John adds on by talking about the way you can interact with the environment in Sandbox using the grapple shot, mentioning that you can use it to grab weapons, fusion coils, and launch yourself towards an enemy. He also made mention of equipment, how you can carry up to 3 pieces of equipment that you can swap between, and that they each differ. Think of it as swapping between your grenades. It seems to me that the compromise elements of Halo Infinite is coming into play. In Halo 3, you could use the Sandbox and its equipment to maneuver your way through a unique combat dance that takes advantage of the environment and the limitations that it brings you. If someone tossed down a bubble shield, you could unexpectedly charge into the bubble, throw down a grav lift, back out before the enemy can melee you, and watch the bubble get lifted up by the grav lift. Then you could fire at the stunned enemy. Or, if you're at an intersection between corridors with an assault rifle and you're stuck behind cover, you can throw that deployable shield down. And then you can use that shield to protect yourself while firing from behind it. Or, you could use that cover to move to a more advantageous position. Halo 5 is the opposite. Instead of using the environment as your shield and the sandbox as your sword, you use your own enhanced abilities as a means to dominate the environment. Your extremely mobile nature is your greatest asset, and knowing how to move is the difference between life and death. Here, Halo Infinite acts as a compromise. You can use the grapple shot to get around obstacles and terrain, which you can also use to interact with the sandbox, which then you could use to your own advantage. Take the wall shield we saw in July 2020. Imagine if a player is under attack from you, who has the commando, and you got the drop on them. You're both in a narrow canyon, and they have a battle rifle. They throw down the wall shield and pepper you with their BR. Now, you're at a disadvantage as you are in a narrow spot with no cover and you cannot hit them back. So, you use your grapple to traverse to the top of the canyon and escape over the ledge so they might lose sight of you. To ensure they don't know when you're moving to attack or where you will be, you throw down a radar jammer. We don't know if the radar jammer is coming back, by the way. You move farther along the canyon and drop down behind them. The player doesn't realize where you are. You move to assassinate them, but damn! They turned around to check their back and see you approaching. They pull out the bulldog and rush towards you using sprint. You throw down a lotus mine or something akin to it, which they step on, and it detonates, leaving you the only one standing. Now, we don't know if it will look exactly like that, but this little thought experiment was meant to demonstrate the possibilities here. John wraps up this topic expressing his excitement to see how the community comes up with new and exciting ways to make use of the sandbox and abilities. Next, we get another in-game photo. Here we can see quite a lot actually. Firstly, the sniper rifle. It appears to be a mix of the SRS-99AM from Reach and the SRS-99S5AM from Halo 4 and 5 with a black paint job. One thing that has improved drastically is the fact that the material the weapon is made out of, it shows. Compare this to the July demo, where the weapons looked like they were made of rubber. Taking a look at the environment, we can see that this was taken in a gorge. Nearby is a warthog, and further off in the background, we can see a Forerunner structure that is very, very reminiscent of the floating towers on Requiem. We of course see the shields and radar, and in the bottom right corner, we can see the sniper and its ammo counter. We also see what appears to be a secondary weapon. We have not seen it in any gameplay trailer or image or art, but we have seen something very similar to it in toy products. This weapon is called the Disruptor. What it may do, we do not know. We also see what appears to be grenade and the equipment. What these may be, I don't know. In the next topic, a question that many have been wondering is asked. What impact does co-op have on gameplay experiences across Zeta Halo? Troy breaks tradition and goes first, talking about how co-op is meant to be experiencing the Master Chief story with your friends. He makes a callback to how the gameplay experience is meant to provide players with options and accommodate different playstyles. Co-op is basically meant to facilitate each player getting to make use of their own playstyle. He mentions that he is excited to see what combinations players come up with. John didn't have much to add, basically reiterating what was already stated. I wonder how they are going to handle campaign co-op with player characters. Will both players be the Master Chief like in Halo CE 2 and 4, or will it be like ODST where the other players are just random ODSTs while the other player is the character? So let's say I host a campaign session with my friend. Will I be the Master Chief and my friend a random Spartan? Personally, I would prefer it that way, even though yes, canonically it is just the Master Chief moving about. It would be really inorganic and take me out of the immersion if the other player was the Master Chief. I mention ODST because it works well. Take Tyree Plaza as an example. It would be weird to see 2 bucks, so instead the second player, or third and fourth, is just a random ODST. I also go back to my question about level selection. Would I be able to hop into a specific level with my friend, or would it just be my friend joining my quote-unquote world and we explore together? How would it work? The next segment is rather short as well. As we look ahead to launch this fall, can you give us a sense of what you and your team are focused on over the remaining months? Justin gives his concluding statement. For sure, the art team, like most development teams, are quickly wrapping up all of our remaining tasks and polishing items as we approach our bug fix and performance stage of the game's production. We will be spending the final months fixing bugs ranging from floating trees to T-posing enemies, as well as ensuring that the game runs smoothly across all platforms. While not the most glamorous phase of development, it is the most technical and crucial to shipping. I think it is important to look at his statement. Infinite is almost ready to launch. In a few months, we'll be getting our hands on the game. So it is a relief to know that these last 9 months are being spent by most teams polishing the game. He is right that this is indeed the most crucial part of game development. Look at Cyberpunk 2077. The game's story is great in my opinion, its world is fascinating, and there is so much to do. But what is sad is that we got a half-baked game, a glitchy, bugged mess with horrible frame rates and a terrible gameplay experience that just totally takes you out of the immersion. I can't go 5 minutes without the frame rate dropping to near unplayable levels. Halo Infinite needs to avoid becoming Cyberpunk 2077. Troy kept it short. The team is 100% focused on wrapping up the campaign experience, which includes gathering and addressing user feedback, both internal playtesters and user research data, bug fixing, performance, and balancing. Then the 3 simply gave their goodbyes, and that was the end of the post, alongside one last in-game image and a Tales from the Trenches segment. So I'll let you read the Tales from the Trenches segment on your own, and there's a link to the post down below. Now, let's look at this image. This image depicts 2 banshees flying over Zeta Halo, and below it says, "Capture a banshee and fly to a floating ring fragment across a gap of stars." That definitely speaks to the scale of the ring, and the playable area. I don't have much else to say, so what can we conclude? Halo Infinite is going to be the largest and most ambitious Halo in the franchise, with many new and unique quirks to it. 343 has quite clearly learned its lesson from the past. I also feel confident that 343 is genuinely going to deliver, at launch at least. I think that they have been honest. Look at the July demo, they didn't exaggerate it by prettying up the graphics and making a fake demo. They weren't like Anthem that totally bullshit the gaming community. They showed the game as it was. And when it was clear the game wasn't ready, they said, okay, let's wait to launch, let's finish the game. Now, time for a Q&A. In case you need a reminder, I do Q&As at the end of my videos. On my Instagram, I place a topic for you guys to ask me about. You send me your questions, and I answer them at the end of my videos. I like to interact with the people that follow me as much as possible, because it's a small group, but it's an amazing group. So, if you would like to talk to me, or play some Halo with me sometime, come join my Discord. Now for the questions. What should Halo do in terms of stealth mechanics? Well, given that one of the key factors of Halo Infinite is your ability to assault Banished Strongholds in whatever way you deem is best, I would say they should add in something like the M7S, and the weapon shouldn't alert the entire base, but if you're in a room with a couple of brutes and they hear the weapon, they should hear the weapon. You know, it should be like, it's not like you fire a sniper and then there's this loud bang that echoes across the valley and then all of a sudden the entire base is alerted to your presence. It should be, you know, you fire the SMG, kill a random grunt, and most people won't notice you, but those that are close enough realistically would hear what sounds like what the book Shadows of Reach described as coughing from the gun, and they would immediately recognize the noise, and that would alert the enemies to your presence. So they should add an element of risk to it. It shouldn't be like Watch Dogs, where you have this silenced pistol where you could fire it at no matter how close to the enemy you are, nobody will hear you. What are you most excited for in regards to Infinite's gameplay? I find that I am really excited to see Infinite sandboxing equipment. It was one of the best aspects of Halo 3 in my opinion, and I hope Infinite does the sandboxing equipment justice. Do you like the new graphics? I find that the graphics have improved greatly, and I can't wait to see the final product in the fall. If you could create a perfect fire team of characters, who would they be and why? Honestly, Blue team. Blue team already fills the role of a perfect fire team. They trust each other, they watch out for one another, but they also put the mission first. And they do what they have to do and remain focused on the mission even when they think the others might be dead. Let's take Linda from Shadows of Reach. At one point, her and Special Crew were separated from John, Kelly, and Fred. For all she knew, her lifelong teammates were dead, in custody of brutes, being tortured or injured somewhere, dying slowly. She might have had to continue the mission as the one remaining Spartan of Blue Team, but she steeled herself and put the mission first and acted professionally because she had a job to do. That is the perfect fire team in my opinion. Do you think the progression in Infinite is a reasonable amount? You know, given that we don't actually know much about the progression system in Infinite, if it even has one, I don't think I could give an answer to that. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, that wraps it up for this one. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. See you in the cosmos, friends.